エルシャのシャルウィートーク。Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of my podcast series, エルシャの Shall We Talk? Where we talk about otaku culture, voice acting, language learning, life in Japan, and more. I'm your host, erusha, a trilingual voice actress and Vtuber fluent in English, Japanese, and Mandarin Chinese. Every episode, I will be answering your questions, giving advice, and talking based on submissions sent in by my community. I recently moved to Tokyo, so today I will be focusing on topics revolving around my experience living alone in Japan for the past 2 months, and then also giving some advice. Yeah, we are back! Oh my god, it's the first podcast episode after moving to Japan. 今日も可愛いですね。ありがとうございます。今日は英語会なんですけど、ぜひ楽しんでください。It's been how many months since the last episode? The last time I did an episode was before I moved to Japan, so it's been at least 2-3 months. But yeah, we have a lot of submissions from the community. I will be answering a lot of questions about, my experience living in Japan so far. So I hope I can fill you guys in on how my life has been in the past few months. それでは早速始めていきましょう。As usual, I will be reading submissions sent in by my viewers and then answering the questions. はい、じゃあ最初はWe have a submission from Edutato name Love Muffins. Hello, Erusha. By the time of the podcast episode, it should have been about a month since you've moved to Japan. Actually, it's been 2 months, but close enough. And so I thought it would be a great opportunity to ask you some questions related to that. Okay, so the first question we have is, after living in Japan for a month, what are your thoughts so far? What do you like and dislike about living in Japan? Perfect question for me to share my experience living in Japan so far. My likes and dislikes. I think what I like the most about living in Japan is just how convenient it is to get daily necessities like food, toilet paper, shampoo, etc. It's all accessible at convenience stores, and konbinis are everywhere if you've ever been to Japan, right? In walking distance, you will always have access to a convenience store in Tokyo. So if it's like in the middle of the night and you really need toothpaste, like you just happen to run out of toothpaste, you can just go to the konbini, right? So, I can't do that back in Australia because I'd have to wait until 9 a.m. or something when the shopping centers open. Nothing is open 24 hours that I can go to and just buy a toothbrush. So, I really like that about Japan. Public transport is also super convenient in Tokyo, and you don't need a car, at all. You don't even need a bike. You can get everywhere you need to with trains, buses, and honestly just walking. I think that encourages me to go out more, because back in Australia I'd never go outside because it takes so long to get to anywhere. But in Japan, I'm happy to just go out for a walk, because even just walking 5 minutes away from the place I'm living, I have access to restaurants, konbinis, little stores here and there. The supermarket is only a 5-minute walk from where I'm living. So it really encourages me to go outside more. Yeah. And what I dislike about Japan, if you've heard anybody else living in Japan talk about what they hate about living in Japan, you've probably already heard this, but I hate how much paperwork there is. They are not joking when they say the paperwork in Japan is crazy. Everything has to be handwritten. and done in person. You literally can't do anything online. I think they're starting to get a little bit better with it because I was able to sign up for my water online. Like I just had to download an application for it. But everything else, I have to make phone calls or I have to physically go there to sign up. You cannot sign up for things online. And it's such a hassle because like if you want to sign up for a bank account, you have to go to a post office and you have to be there before 4 p.m. They close the service at 4 p.m. And like 4 p.m. is really early. I'm pretty sure post offices in Australia close at like 6. But yeah, 4 p.m. is really, really early. And you also have to make a booking. I was really lucky. They let me open a bank account even though I didn't make a booking in advance. But typically you have to make a booking and it closes by 4 p.m. So it's kind of a hassle. And yeah, everything has to be handwritten. I don't think I've ever in my entire life written my name, my address, and phone number as much as I have in the past 2 months of living in Tokyo. Like, you have to handwrite your name and then also write it in katakana. So if I were to write erusha, I write erusha, and then I also have to write it in katakana, like you see on my logo at the top, erusha. You have to write your name twice because sometimes they don't know how to read your name. So you also have to, tell them how to read your name. And of course, you have to write your address, you have to write your phone number, you also have to write your email address. There's just so much handwriting. And it's a hassle when you are not good at writing Japanese. I am fully fluent in Japanese, but I'm not that good at writing. I can type, but I can't really write. Like, I don't really write Japanese on a daily basis. So every single time I have to write my address, I'm like, pulls out the notes app, and I'm like, Tokyo to nani-nani-ku. And I have to look at the kanji on my phone. Otherwise, I don't know how to write it. Because, nowadays, you don't really need to handwrite things that often. I can pretty much get by just by typing. So it's been a hassle having to write my address so many times. Yeah, I also dislike how much phone calls you have to make to get to the specific person in charge of your problem. I don't know if this is just a Japan thing, but when I was trying to set up my electricity and gas, I was running into some issues, so I called the number that was like, support for if you have issues with gas. And then they were like, sorry, your issue isn't the specific issue that we deal with, and therefore please refer to this number instead. So I called the number that they told me to call, and then the number was like, in your case, because you signed a contract with this company, you need to call up this insurance company instead. We don't deal with that. So then I had to call up the insurance company, and I got pushed around to maybe like 4 or 5 different people before I finally could get what I need. And every single time I make a new call, I have to re-explain my situation. So it's a hassle, and I genuinely cannot imagine how anyone who doesn't speak Japanese or has a close friend or partner or family member who can help them who's fluent in Japanese could survive here. You have to make so many phone calls. And you have to re-explain your situation in Japanese so many times. If you're thinking of coming to Japan, to live here, start brushing up on your Japanese. You need to be, at least conversational level. Unless, you have a friend or a family member who can help you. It's very difficult. So yeah, it's convenient when it comes to transport and getting daily necessities, but it's so inconvenient when it comes to paperwork, setting things up, signing up for stuff. So yeah, I guess you gain some, you lose some. Yeah. And second question is, this is your first time living alone. Not only that, you're in a completely different country, far away from home. How is your experience living alone for the first time? What do you miss most about Australia? I do kind of miss Australia. I thought I wasn't going to miss Australia that much because I don't go outside, but I actually do miss Australia. Let's see. Struggles with living alone. I think what I was most worried about was that I'd struggle with taking care of myself and my living environment since, I'm not very proud of it, but back in Australia, I didn't do much chores, only, occasionally washing the dishes and just cleaning my own room. I knew how to cook, but I didn't do it often or know many recipes. I actually had never done the laundry, ever, before moving to Japan. And there was a lot of things that would be a first time for me, including signing up for voice acting school and getting an apartment, setting up the internet, etc. All of those things. I didn't have to take care of it back in Australia. My parents set up the internet. My parents got the house that we live in. My parents signed up for school for me. So many things were a first time for me, and I was really worried that I don't have enough experience or I'm not independent enough to be able to handle it all myself. But I somehow managed to do everything just fine. I did get a lot of help from my friends who have been living in Japan for many years on the paperwork side. Like my friend took me to SoftBank and helped me set up my Japanese phone number. But when it comes to doing chores, shopping for groceries, cooking, and cleaning, I've been managing it very well on my own. I cook pretty much every day. I make sure I get my fruits and veggies, even though they're so expensive, like especially fruits. Oh my god, it costs like what, $5 for 4 apples? I vacuum pretty much every day. I do my laundry, I wash my dishes right after I finish my meals. And I think I've been living as a functioning, independent adult. So I'm quite proud of myself. I do miss being able to come home or wake up and just have food ready on the table. I do really miss my mom's cooking. As much as I think I cook pretty good too, there are some dishes that my mom makes that are more complicated that I'm too lazy to buy ingredients for. I also really miss Melbourne coffee. Oh my god. If you guys didn't know, I'm from Melbourne specifically in Australia, and Melbourne is pretty famous for coffee. We have like the best coffee. I mean, to be fair, I haven't had coffee in like every country in the world, but out of all the countries that I've been to and had coffee at, Melbourne has the best coffee. It's so good. And everyone in my family likes coffee, so we actually invested into an espresso machine when we moved a few years ago. I really miss drinking a cup of freshly made coffee every day from our espresso machine. That was like what I looked forward to every day. Just getting that cup of coffee from our espresso machine, freshly made. Nothing hits the same. No coffee I get in Japan hits the same. Maybe I just haven't found the right cafe, but I miss the coffee back in Australia. Yeah. I also really miss my cats. If you guys don't know, I have 2 cats back in Australia. They're sisters. They're called Emma and Mitty. We adopted them from RSPCA. And yeah, I miss my cats. I don't know what else to say. It's honestly pretty lonely sometimes, coming home to no one. I can say, Tadaima, and there'll be no one to say, Okaeri to me. I say, I'm home, and there's no one who will say, welcome home to me, which is a bit sad. Sometimes I wish I at least could have a pet keeping me company so I don't feel so isolated. But I do have a lot of friends in Japan and I do go out way more often than I do in Australia, so it's not that bad. And of course, I miss my parents, especially just chatting to my mom. My mom and I like to, sit at the dinner table and just chat about life. I really miss that. I miss going out to get food with my parents. And I miss the carefree, friendly, and open vibe of Australia and Australian people. Like being able to just have a conversation with a shop clerk about anime. I remember when I went to get a new pair of glasses just before flying off to Tokyo, I was talking to the shop clerk and she was like, "Oh, where are you going?" "Oh, Japan. I love Japan. I love anime. Oh, I love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure." And she was just like so open and easy to talk to. Everything feels so much more casual and carefree in Australia, whereas in Japan, it feels so formal. Like, if I went to a shop in Japan, they'll be like, "Irashaimase. Ohayou gozaimasu. 失礼いたしました." Like, it's so formal. They won't strike a conversation with you and, like, be friendly with you. They'll be really, really professional and polite. And while, that's also nice. I like it when people are polite to me. But sometimes it can feel a little bit too katai. It's a little bit too strict. I wish things could be more carefree sometimes. Yeah. It's also really hard to make new friends in Japan because of that. I never know when people are genuinely interested in getting to know me or if they're just being nice. Like, when I go to voice acting school, we have to say, "Ohayou gozaimasu" and "Otsukaresama desu." And it feels like work. It feels so much more strict and formal compared to just being like, "Hey, how you doing? Yo, see you later." Like, I don't know why, but everything in English just feels more casual and it feels a lot easier to close the distance with people when I talk to them in English or back in Australia. Whereas in Japan, it always feels like there's this invisible wall between us. Like we're talking, but we're not actually talking. We're just being nice on the surface to each other. Yeah, so that's a bit unfortunate. And I did grow up in Australia and live in Australia for most of my life, so I am an Aussie. I do miss the friendly Aussies back at home. Yeah. So that's what I miss about Australia. And next we have, what are some unexpected struggles you've discovered after moving to Japan? Unexpected struggles. I mean, the paperwork part, I was expecting because, I listened to Trash Taste. I watched a lot of vlogs and videos of YouTubers living in Japan talking about, what it's like living in Japan. So I was expecting the paperwork part. Unexpected. I think the biggest unexpected struggle I've had since moving to Japan is how difficult it is to keep your spending in control. I actually have really good spending habits. I'm really good at saving money. Usually, I'm super good at not buying things I don't need and keeping track of how much money I spend. But in Japan, I somehow always end up overspending or spending money that I wasn't originally intending to. I thought it would be better if I'm living here and not here temporarily for travel, but I still spend way more money here than I do in Australia. I keep buying snacks and clothes and also plushies. Like, I bought 2 pairs of pajamas since coming to Japan, and I literally brought 2 pairs of pajamas from Australia. So I don't need any more pajamas. But Chikawa and Sanrio was doing a collab with Uniqlo. So I was like, I need this in my life. I need these pajamas. I mean, I don't need them, but like I need them. So I bought them. Even though I don't even need new pajamas. And ended up buying a lot of clothes at Uniqlo because, you know, they feel so affordable individually. Like, oh, only 3,000 yen. Oh, only 4,000 yen. And then when you add it all up, it becomes like 10k, 20k. So yeah, it's very difficult to keep your spending in control. I also always end up buying ice cream and gummies at convenience stores because they're just so close and accessible. Like, you know, I go somewhere, I go to school, I go to work, and then I come back from the train, and there's like 3 konbinis on the walk from the train station back to my place. If I literally walk past a place that has ice cream, I get tempted to walk in and grab one on the way home, right? Like, it's... Maybe I just have bad self-control, but, you know, in Australia, I'd have to take a bus or drive to the closest shopping center, which is at least 20 minutes away to get anything. And also, they're not open after like, what, 6 p.m., 8 p.m.? So even if I wanted, like, even if I was craving ice cream at midnight, I can't get it. It's not available. It's simply not available. Even if I drove all the way to the shopping center, it would be closed. So, you know, it's easier to keep your snacking desires under control when you literally don't have access to them. And in Japan, konbinis are open 24/7. They're also scattered everywhere. So it's very hard. It's very hard to hold yourself back from buying snacks. Oh my god, sites like Mercari are also really dangerous. I'm a huge fan of cinnamon roll, and I recently became a Chiikawa fan since coming to Japan. So if you guys don't know Chiikawa, it's like this cute little mascot character that's really, really popular in Japan. You'll see it everywhere. It's adorable. You can try Googling it. There's so much merch of Chiikawa. You'll see it like everywhere. And in the beginning, I wasn't really into it. I was like, why does everyone like this little blob of, like, you know, this little white blob? Like, there's nothing special about it. But I don't know if it's like Japan marketing or something, but I see Chiikawa so often that I got attached to it. And now I'm a fan. Like, you literally can't avoid Chiikawa. You go anywhere and you'll see Chiikawa. And then when you see it so often, you kind of get attached to it. Like, the more you see it, the more you're like, oh, it's kind of cute. Oh, wait, that expression's really adorable. Oh, that plushie's really adorable. And then before I knew it, a month, 2 months into living in Japan, I have fallen into the Chiikawa rabbit hole. I am now a Chiikawa girly. So, it's really dangerous because I get super tempted to buy merch. A lot of people sell very affordable merch on Mercari. Like, they are good at crane games, so they'll catch, you know, crane game prizes and then sell those on Mercari for like super affordable prices. I got a big Hachiware plushie for just 1,800 yen, which to me is like really cheap. That's like what? $18 AUD, less if it was in USD. It's so cheap. I couldn't help myself. So yeah, I need to work on my self-control when it comes to spending in Japan. Yeah, that's been a recent struggle. Another struggle would be I didn't expect making Japanese friends to be so difficult. I thought I would have no problem with making new friends in Japan because I speak fluent Japanese. I'm super comfortable with speaking Japanese, and I also don't look that different to Japanese people since I'm Asian. So, I thought I would be more approachable, and if I'm also fluent in the language, I thought, I'd blend in with Japanese people, no problem. But even though I'm like fluent in the language, with a native accent too, I still struggle with getting to know Japanese people. I noticed that Japanese people are much less likely to strike a conversation with someone that they don't already know, and they like to stick to their own cliques. Yeah. It's also really hard to tell who's genuinely interested in getting to know you and who's just being polite. I've added so many people on Line, which is the most common messaging app used in Japan. It's called Line. I added at least 10 people from my voice acting school online, and I don't talk to any of them. They never message me. I'm too scared to message them. I don't know if we're actually friends or not. I add them and then we never talk. I don't know how to strike conversations or invite them to hang out. It feels like they only gave me their contact details because they were being nice and they don't actually want to get to know me. I feel like it's so much easier to become friends with foreigners who live in Japan rather than Japanese people. Even if they don't speak English, a foreigner who's been living in Japan for 5 years is easier to be friends with than a Japanese person. I don't know why, but I keep befriending foreigners. All of my closest friends in Japan right now, I'd say, are foreigners who have been living here for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So they've been in Japan for a really long time and they know Japan really well and it's their home now. But they are a foreigner. They're not Japanese and they did live in another country before. I feel like those people are the ones that I get along with the most easiest, whereas full Japanese people who only speak Japanese, have lived in Japan their whole life, I feel like are more closed off and less willing to get to know me and talk to me. It depends on the person. Some people will be really interested in, getting to know me because I speak so many languages and I just moved here and they'll be really curious about how I learned Japanese and stuff like that. But I think in most cases, people are less willing to talk to me. Yeah, it's okay. Japanese people struggle with talking to Japanese people. Yeah, that's true. I feel like Japanese people just don't like opening up. If they already have friends, they don't want to make more. They're happy with what they already have, and they don't want to get to know more people. That's kind of the vibe that I get. Even if they don't mind getting to know you, they'll still prefer just hanging out with the friends they already have, rather than trying to get to know you better. I think they just don't like trying new things and getting to know new people. And I think they like to stick with what they're familiar with. That's probably a part of just Japanese culture. Yeah, I think maybe it's just a part of Japanese culture to keep to yourself, to be reserved and not really reach out or get to know new people. So maybe it can't be helped. But it's okay because I have a lot of foreigner friends in Japan, so it's fine. It's not like I don't have friends. I'm fine. I'm fine. Hopefully I can make more Japanese friends though. The next question is, many people say Japan is a nice place to visit, but not a great place to live in. Do you agree with that statement? 100% agree. After moving to Japan myself, I can definitely say that I completely agree with people who say Japan is a better place for visiting than for living. It's so hard for a non-Japanese citizen to get anything done in Japan. I couldn't even pay for my voice acting school fees until I physically got to Japan because they only accept Japanese bank transfer. And obviously, I don't have that. I can't set up a Japanese bank account unless I'm in Japan. So I can't pay for my school fees until I come here, but I can't come here until I get my visa. So just nothing works out. And, I was emailing my teacher and everything and being like, oh, would it be possible for me to do an international bank transfer? And they were like, no. But it's okay, you can come and pay in cash when you arrive. So thankfully, they were lenient enough to wait for me to come and then go and pay in cash. But, they weren't open to the idea of doing international bank transfer, even though it's technically possible. Like, there is a SWIFT code. I can do an international bank transfer. But they were like, nah. You can come first, and then we'll accept your payment in cash. That's how they do things in Japan. Yeah. I also needed a hanko stamp for my application. If you guys don't know what a hanko is, it's basically a stamp with your name on it, and it's like a signature. It works like a signature. Of course, I didn't have one because we don't use those in Australia. We just use signatures. Only Japan still uses hankos. Everywhere else in the world uses signature. So I had to get my friend to help me order a hanko with my name on it before I arrive so that I can have a hanko ready for my school application. So yeah, a lot of things are super inconvenient if you're a foreigner, because things like a hanko is really only used in Japan, so you wouldn't have one or know that you'll need one until you get here. There are also some really specific rules that you have to follow, like having to go to the city office of your area to register your address every time you move. And it has like at least a 2-hour waiting time. Yeah. That surprised me too. Like, I don't remember having to go to somewhere to register my address, like to inform the government that I moved when I move. Is that only a thing in Japan? It has to only be a thing in Japan. Like, you have to just go to this office, wait in line for 2 to 3 hours, just to write down, here's my new address, submit it, and then get it physically inked onto your card. Like, why? Why can't I just do it online? But yeah, that's something you have to do if you live in Japan. Renting an apartment is also super difficult. I'm sure you've already heard if you've watched any videos of people living in Japan talking about it. There are many initial fees that the renter, so you, would be responsible of paying for, like exchanging the lock and key. That costs like 22k. You have to pay for insurance and a guarantor if you're a foreigner, so that they can make sure you don't not pay for your rent and run away. And you also have to pay for all of the furniture, including things that you'd usually expect to be included, like the light. I was left with a hole in the ceiling. Like, literally, there was just a hole in the ceiling. There was no light. I had to run to Big Camera and buy one for 8,000 yen. And attach it myself. And that was like unbelievable to me. I was like, I get left just with a hole in the ceiling? I have to go buy one and attach it myself? Yeah, I was not expecting that. Apparently, depending on the place that you get, sometimes there won't be an aircon. And you have to buy an aircon yourself too. Thankfully, my place had an aircon. But yeah, I was pretty shocked that there was no light. Also, oh my god, every time you try to sign up for anything, even if it's just a point card, you have to fill out so much details, including your full name with furigana as well, so in katakana, and your date of birth, your phone number, your email, your home address, and sometimes even more. Yeah. Like, when I went to buy the light at Big Camera, they were like, oh, would you like to sign up for a point card? And I was like, sure? And they were like, okay, here, fill out this form. And then I had to write my name, address, phone number, gender, the date of birth, this, that. Like, it took me like 10 minutes. And I was like, fuck, I should have said no. I should have said no, I don't want a point card. Yeah, it's a hassle. You usually wouldn't think about making point cards if you're just in Japan for traveling, so that's also something you might have to deal with if you live here. Because it is more beneficial to have point cards if you're gonna keep going back to the same place. Like, I probably should make a point card for Animate or the nearby supermarket, because I go there often, right? So you wanna get points and get discounts. Yeah. In Australia, I swear most of the time they just need my email address and it's done. I don't know what it's like in other countries. If it's different or the same in your country, please feel free to leave a comment on this episode. But in Australia, I remember I signed up for Typo. This Typo is a stationery store. I signed up for Typo membership. And all they needed was just my email. Just my email, done. They don't need my name, they don't need my phone number, they don't need my address or anything. Just my email. So, yeah, it sure feels like a lot of extra steps when you're signing up for something in Japan. Yeah. So, when you're in Japan for just a short period of time traveling, you won't need to set up a bank account or any point cards or memberships, and you don't need to get an apartment or register your address. So, of course it's way better. Japanese bureaucracy is just the worst. I can't speak for the work culture in Japan because I'm currently on a working holiday visa and I'm just doing some freelance work from home, so I'm not really a part of the Japanese workforce at the moment. But you've probably heard about how toxic work culture in Japan can be. A lot of overworking, a lot of zangyo, and also very strict and formal. And yeah, Japanese bureaucracy sucks. Yeah. I feel like all of the best parts of Japan, like the food, the entertainment, all of that can just be experienced from traveling. You don't really experience much living here that's like a bonus that you don't get by traveling here. I mean, you'll probably have to travel here multiple times to really explore, but I feel like you can get all of the best parts of Japan just by traveling. And if anything, living here might ruin your image of Japan because there's so much shit that you have to deal with. Yeah. So, I would recommend coming to Japan multiple times if you really want to explore the country. But, being here on vacation means you get to spend all of your time just enjoying the fun parts of Japan and not having to spend like a whole day just applying for something and filling out endless paperwork. So, if you are thinking, should I try moving to Japan? Or should I just, stay in my own country and, save up money and travel to Japan maybe like once a year? I would recommend option 2. Unless you really want to experience living in Japan specifically, unless you want to work in Japan, or like me, you do some sort of work where it's just more beneficial for you to be in Japan. Like, I get so many opportunities in Japan, right? I now get to go record for Merryweather, which I actually went today. That's why the episode was 1 hour late. I get a lot more opportunities to do work because I do a lot of voice acting and translation work in Japanese. So by being in Japan, I get more opportunities. That's probably the biggest reason why I decided to move here. If your job doesn't particularly involve Japanese, or you don't particularly benefit career-wise from being in Japan, I genuinely recommend just coming to Japan for a holiday, for vacation. Come here like once a year, maybe twice a year if you have the money. Just come here for traveling. It's honestly better that way. You don't want to deal with the paperwork. Yeah. And I think that was all the questions from Muffins. Thank you so much, Muffins, for so many good questions. That gives me the perfect opportunity to talk about my life in Japan. Thank you. I hope that was interesting. we have, I believe, 2 more questions related to life in Japan. Next, we have a submission from educator named Long. Long says, "Be meaning to ask this, but is food homemade or store-bought? I don't know if your cooking is Michelin star or abysmal, and now I worry." What do you mean? Are you asking whether I buy food from stores more often or whether I cook more often in Japan? If that's what it is, then recently, I'd say I definitely cook more often, especially after moving from a share house to my own apartment and having, my own kitchen and also having really close access to a supermarket. I've been cooking like every day. I wasn't expecting myself to cook much when moving to Japan since, it's so easy and cheap to eat out or get store-bought food. But surprisingly, I've been cooking almost every day. Pretty proud of myself. You can easily just go to Matsuya, Yoshinoya, Sukiya, or go to like Family Mart or go to a bento shop and get like a really nice meal for 400, 500 yen, which is really, really cheap. You don't actually save that much money from cooking yourself. But, it's healthier. I can make sure I get veggies because that's really difficult if you eat out. It's hard to get your veggie intake if you're eating out. I can also, adjust the spices to my own liking. So I enjoy cooking. I really like the taste of my own home-cooked food. Dishes I've made recently include stir-fried vegetables, miso soup, curry rice, mapo tofu, chicken wings, kimchi fried rice, and my signature dish, tomato and egg soup, which I also like to add in some udon and extra veggies like mushrooms. Yeah. I really enjoy cooking. Cooking's fun. It is kind of annoying when I cook a huge pot of curry and then I have to eat curry for the next 3 days to finish it, but it saves me money and it's kind of fun to cook, so I'll probably be cooking a lot from here on out as well. When buying store-bought food though, I like getting onigiris for a quick lunch. Or, oh my god, I really like the oyakodon from Family Mart. It's really good. If you come to Japan and you need like a quick meal that you can just like heat up and have, one of my personal favorites is the oyakodon from Family Mart. I really like it. I can't say why, I just really like it. I've tried a lot of the, packed foods at konbinis, and I think the oyakodon from Family Mart is my favorite. It's really nice. Yeah, but now that I have a rice cooker, I could just make oyakodon myself. But yeah, I recommend Family Mart oyakodon. So yeah, don't worry. I cook quite often, and I'd say my cooking tastes pretty good. My kimchi fried rice was approved by Hiro during the last off-collab stream that we did. So if you need evidence from a third party that my cooking is actually good, refer to that one off-collab that I did with Hiro. Thank you. Yeah. Next, we have a submission from educator named the Oji-san. Hello, Edu. Uncle is going to Japan for the first time in my life at the end of this year. Ooh! And I have been wanting to go to Japan for years. So, for my first trip, my family and I are going to Osaka, Kyoto, and Hokkaido. Okay? Therefore, I've prepared some questions for a first-timer. Okay. I've never been to Hokkaido, actually. I really want to go to Hokkaido too. But I did go to Osaka and Kyoto before I moved here on a trip, so hopefully I can give some good recommendations. Let's see. So, first of all, we are looking for food and restaurant recommendations. First of all, I haven't been to Hokkaido, so I can't say much on that. But for Osaka and Kyoto, I'd say the most memorable food that I had in Osaka would be the takoyaki from Takoyaki Ichiban Shinsekai. I've had takoyaki a lot, like back in Australia as well, and from different places in Japan, because they sell takoyaki everywhere. But that takoyaki that I had at Takoyaki Ichiban Shinsekai was easily the best takoyaki I've ever had in my life. Every time I remember it, I wish I could go back and have more. Like, I'm not a foodie. I don't really go out of my way to go get food, and yet this specific takoyaki, every time I remember it, I can feel my mouth salivating. Like, I really miss it. I really want to have it again. So, because it left such a great impression on me, I would like to recommend the takoyaki at Takoyaki Ichiban Shinsekai. Please do check it out. If you forget about it, I did also talk about it in my Japan vlog. So, if you check that, you should be able to find footage and the name of the place. I also just really recommend Shinsekai in general. If you don't know what Shinsekai is, it's like this little town area. I don't know what it's called. I think everyone goes to Dotonbori because it's like the famous tourist place. But no, don't go to Dotonbori. Or you can go there if it's your first time, but like, just go there once. Take a photo with like the man and then leave. Dotonbori is such a tourist trap. I'm telling you. Dotonbori is so mid. Okay? It's so mid and overhyped. It's a tourist trap. It's so crowded. It's filled with only tourists and barely any Japanese people. Everything is overpriced and overcrowded, and it's just not worth it. Go to Shinsekai. Shinsekai's better. Shinsekai has a better atmosphere, in my opinion. So, if you wanna, experience like Osaka food or just the vibe of Osaka, go to Dotonbori, take a picture with like that famous man, and then just like go to Shinsekai. You don't need to stay in Dotonbori. It's way too crowded. At least for me. I thought Dotonbori was not really worth visiting. As for Kyoto, I wasn't in Kyoto for long, but my most memorable experience in Kyoto was actually in Uji, the matcha town. I think Uji should be a part of Kyoto, yeah. Uji is so good. Oh my god, please go to Uji. Every single person that I talked to who like went on a Japan trip recently, who went to Uji, says it was like the best. Uji is amazing. Go to Uji. It's like in between Osaka and Kyoto, I believe. So, if you're going to Osaka, Kyoto, like, just go to Uji. Go to Uji when you're, like, in between the two. Please go to Uji. It's so good. It was just so peaceful. Like, it was a vibe. There's less people, so it's, like, a lot more quiet and peaceful. There's more nature. And if you love matcha, you are blessed with every kind of matcha food you could ever imagine. And I really, really, really enjoy my time there. So, go to Uji. Yeah. And if you go to Kyoto, try kimono rental. I also recommended a place in my vlog. I believe it was called Oka Kimono? だっけ? ちょっと名前思い出せないな. I don't remember the exact name, but if you go to my vlog, you should be able to find the name of the kimono rental place that I went to. I had a really good experience with them, so I recommend them. And yeah, Kyoto's like the best place to experience kimono rental because there's so many shrines. I believe there was a shrine just nearby the kimono rental place that I went to. So if you go to Kyoto, try kimono rental. I know you can also do it in Asakusa, but Asakusa is just way too crowded. So I'd recommend doing it somewhere else. Yeah. But yeah, go to Uji. Uji is my number one recommendation if you're gonna be like in Kyoto or near Kyoto. And second, we want recommendations for hardcore anime otakus. For otaku stuff? You know what I discovered when I went to Osaka and Kyoto is that you can actually find rarer and better stuff than Tokyo. It was really surprising. I actually didn't buy anything from La Shinban or Mandarake in Tokyo, but when I went to Osaka and Kyoto, I actually ended up finding some really good figurines for like a super cheap price at a La Shinban in Kyoto. If you want merch, I definitely recommend visiting the stores that sell secondhand merch like La Shinban, Mandarake. You might find some hidden gems because typically people go to Tokyo, right? To shop for anime otaku stuff. So usually, Tokyo stores, all of the good stuff, sold out, gone, already taken by other people. But if you go to like a more hidden place in Osaka, Kyoto, or in like another part of Japan, you're more likely to find something rare. So yeah, definitely check out the merch stores. I also recommend keeping an eye out for collaborations of any anime or games you like because Japan is constantly doing collabs. Tokyo gets most of the collabs, but Osaka and Kyoto get a lot of collabs too. So go to this website called collabocafe.com. It will show you all of the pop-up stores, collab cafes, karaoke collabs, etc. that's happening right now or will be happening soon. I recommend checking this website around 1 month in advance to see if there's anything going on or will be going on during your stay that you'd like to get a booking for so you don't miss it. The worst thing would be to not check and then come to Japan, realize, oh my god, they're doing a collab cafe for my favorite anime. Oh my god, I gotta get a booking. You open the booking page, fully booked. You're in Japan. You had the chance and you missed it. That's like the worst feeling. So I recommend keep an eye out, like literally just camp the site, collabocafe.com, a month or even 2 months in advance. And if you see a collab, immediately look for when the reservations open and try and snatch a reservation as soon as you can. Yeah. And next we have, we want tips and tricks for first timers. Okay, for people who are coming to Japan for the first time, I recommend getting a Suica, which is a transport card. If you don't know what that is. Don't get physical tickets. Please do not buy physical tickets every time you need to go somewhere. It's such a hassle. You might lose your ticket and then you won't be able to get out of the station. That happened to my friend the other day. So just get a Suica. It's so easy. Get a Suica. Yeah. And avoid Shinjuku Station. Please avoid Shinjuku Station. Avoid Shinjuku Station if you can, because it's so big, so crowded, and so easy to get lost. Yeah. Google Maps and Apple Maps will often tell you to transfer lines at Shinjuku because there are so many train lines that go through Shinjuku, but that's exactly why it's so hard to navigate. I found that it's often easier to just go to a nearby station that has the same line you need to take. For example, if you want to take the Oedo subway line, it's available at Yoyogi Station. And Yoyogi is only 1 stop away from Shinjuku. So rather than getting off at Shinjuku and then walking for like 20 minutes to try and find the Oedo subway line, it's easier to just go 1 stop ahead on the JR line, stop at Yoyogi instead, and then go to the Oedo subway line, which takes like 5 minutes. You know? Yeah, in my experience, it takes like up to 20 minutes to even reach the Oedo subway line area in Shinjuku Station. Whereas Yoyogi, you know, it's the only available transfer, so it's super straightforward. Oh yeah, also don't touch crane games. Yeah. I know it's tempting, but don't touch them, please. Unless you know you're good at it, then you can go for it. But if you're not good or experienced with crane games, you'll usually just waste money. And it's money they'll never get back. Yeah. If there's a prize that you really, really want in a crane game, you can probably find it for cheaper in a store or sold online, like on Mercari, than trying to catch it yourself. Again, unless you're actually really good at crane games. Same deal with Ichiban Kuji. It's basically gacha IRL, and you'll save more money just by buying the item online if you really want it, rather than trying to draw yourself. Of course, go for it. Go for it if you want to experience it, but if you genuinely just want the prize, I don't recommend going for crane games and Ichiban Kuji. Because you're just gonna waste so much money, not get what you want, and then be sad. Like, for the amount of money that you paid to try and get something, you'll probably be able to just straight up buy it. So, yeah. Unless you wanna, experience the process of drawing a kuji or trying to catch something, don't go for it. Please don't go for it. Yeah. And last we have, we want souvenir options. Okay. I think food is the best souvenir to get. If lost, go to Don Quixote. And you're good. If you don't know, oh my god, I gotta buy souvenir for like my friends and my parents. Oh my god, I only have like 2 days left. What do I do? Just go to Don Quixote. Don't think. Go to Don Quixote. There's a Don Quixote in like most big places. I recommend getting different Kit Kat flavors. That's always a good one. Or you can get some of the nicely packaged biscuit boxes. There's a lot of those at Don Quixote. Or you can get these boxes of sweets called Baked Creamy Cheese. They're so good that my friend Hannah says she regrets not buying more of them to bring back home. So I highly recommend getting some. Those are like really small boxes, so it's easy to buy a bunch of them and hand them out to different people if you need to give souvenirs to a lot of people. But yeah, food is the way to go. Especially with how much good food there is in Japan. Like, just get food. Food never misses. I would be happier to get food, or it's easier to, I think, it's more likely that you'll please someone by giving them food than by giving them, like, I don't know, socks with some sort of Japan thing printed on it, right? Like, what if they don't want to wear colored socks? Yeah, buy food. Food is always the way to go. You can also just buy it at the airport. Yeah. I think airport souvenirs are usually more expensive, so I definitely recommend going to Don Quixote. I think Don Quixote has the cheapest prices. Well, it should be cheaper than airport prices for sure. So remember, on the last few days of your trip, if you still haven't gotten souvenirs, go to Don Quixote. Yeah. And, we have another one. Clothing options. Recommendations for clothing options. I'm not too familiar with men's clothing options, but I recommend checking out Uniqlo in Japan. I know, a lot of countries have Uniqlo, and you might be like, oh, why would I want to go to Uniqlo? I have Uniqlo back at home. But no, you don't get it. Uniqlo in Japan is different. They have a way bigger collection of clothes. Especially if you go to a big Uniqlo like the one in Ikebukuro. And a lot of items are cheaper than if you were to buy it in your home country. Like, those UT collaboration shirts? They're cheaper if you buy them in Japan than if you buy them in your home country. So, try going to Uniqlo in Japan. Trust me, it's worth it. And I also recommend going to GU for clothes shopping. They have a lot of casual but fashionable clothing options. I see Hiro's recommending it as well. And Zara is great too, yeah. So try going to those clothing stores. They're usually more affordable too. I'm too scared to go into those like high-end clothing brand stores. So if you're scared of high-end expensive clothing brand stores like me, go to Uniqlo, GU, and Zara. Yeah. Oji-san's excited to go to Japan finally and would appreciate if you could answer these questions for preparations for the trip. Thank you, Edu. You're welcome. I hope my responses helped, Oji-san. I tried my best. I unfortunately have not been to Hokkaido and I am living in Tokyo, so there's a limit to how much advice I can give when it comes to exploring other parts of Japan, but I hope my responses were helpful. Thank you for your submission. I think that is the last question I have for today relating to Japan. I also, for the second half of this podcast, I have some questions from people asking for advice because I haven't done an episode for 2-3 months and I have a lot of submissions piled up, and even though I would have loved to talk about living in Japan and just Japan related stuff for the whole episode, I do want to respond to the people who took the time to send in submissions to ask me questions about, the struggles they may be having. So second half of the podcast will be, I was gonna say therapy session, but Edu's life advice corner. ここからは人生相談コーナーです。Let me drink some water. Okay, so stick around if you want to hear some life advice. I'm sure everyone can benefit from life advice. So we have a submission from Edutato name Edutato, whose sprout is missing because Edu got hungry. I'm sorry that I got hungry. Hi Edu, you've always welcomed Edutatos to send submissions to your podcast to ask for advice, and every time you give such great advice. I'm glad that you think I give good advice. So today I would like to ask for your thoughts on something that has been troubling me. There's this person I enjoy talking to, but I'm worried that they don't feel the same way and that I'm just being a bother. I always try to start conversations on topics that I know they'll be interested in and they'll respond properly, but they'll never try to continue the conversation or ask questions back. If I don't message them first, they will never message me. This leads me to wonder if they even like talking with me or if they're just being nice. Is it possible that that's just the way they are, or are the signs obvious? Should I just stop trying? Oh, relationship advice. My favorite. Alright. That's a hard one. It's always hard to give advice without, having too much detail and context. But I'd say it's safe to assume that they are less interested in you than you are interested in them if they don't actively try to talk to you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a chance or that you're bothering them, but from my experience, even people who are really shy, introverted, and usually don't start conversations on their own, they will make an effort to keep the conversation going, to ask questions back, or, sometimes be the one to initiate conversations if they are really interested in you. So I think it's safe to assume that they're not as interested as you are, but that doesn't mean you have to stop trying. I believe if you can spark their interest in the correct way, they will engage more with the conversation and start asking questions back. I know you're already doing it, but, really make sure that you're talking to them about things that they're interested in, and try to lead the conversation in a way so that it's easy for them to engage back. So if they don't ask you questions, make sure to not then proceed to start talking about yourself unprompted, because that could make you come off as obnoxious and annoying. So whenever you do talk about yourself, try to make sure it's something that they at least know or would have some interest in. So, for example, if they don't watch sports at all, don't talk about soccer. Because guess what? They're not gonna care. Maybe they will. Maybe some people just enjoy hearing others being passionate. But more likely than not, if they are not interested in sports and you start talking about the recent soccer match that you watched on TV, they're gonna be like, haha, yeah, cool. And they're not gonna want to talk to you, right? But if you know, for example, they like anime, talk about the anime you're watching this season. And then make sure, this is the important part, also ask them what they're watching. If they don't respond, don't give up. Just ask them questions. Prompt them to talk more. I know it can be discouraging if it goes on for a really long time and you don't get any positive response, but please don't give up. If they're responding, it means you have a chance. As long as you can spark their interest, it doesn't mean that you have to give up, right? Like, there's still a possibility. So, good luck. Don't be too discouraged. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. That's also very important to remember. If it doesn't work out, there's nothing wrong with you. And maybe this person just doesn't vibe with you. That happens sometimes. So, good luck. I'm cheering you on. Please send me updates. はい、次は Next, we have a submission from editor named Nothing I Write Here Can Hide Me. Thanks in advance. Love the podcast. Thank you. Hi, you asked. I'm not sorry. Oh my god, we have more relationship advice. Okay, more relationship stuff. The girl I'm crushing on is real. Okay. But from another state. Okay. We only know each other from helping a mutual friend host a convention booth together, and I think it was obvious that I like her, but I can't tell if she felt the same at all. At the very least, she's comfortable walking through the city at night with me. When we talked alone together, I remember being the one driving the conversation, which is odd. Normally, I listen and get other people to talk for me. We're both artists and the same age, but I think that's where the similarities end. She's so cute though. Her hair was super unique, and for a few weeks after the con, all I was drawing were girls that were basically her. Writing this question is making my heart race just because I have to think about her. Damn, they're really in love. There's a bunch more gushing that I've cut. I know I could get her through the mutual get to her through the mutual friend, but the reason I didn't ask her out back then was because of the distance. I've had bad long-distance relationships, and that's made me kind of scared. If there's a secret to maintaining a good one, I never figured it out. That's another difficult one. Long-distance relationships. I've had my fair share of them as someone who lives on the internet. I think when approaching the question of should I pursue a long-distance relationship, the most important thing to consider is, can I envision a future where we are no longer long distance? If you're in the same country and just different states, honestly, I think that's already pretty promising. I've dated someone who literally lives in a country that I can't enter unless I apply for a visa, and they didn't even speak English. So there was pretty much zero possibility of them relocating to where I am. And I wasn't willing to relocate to where they are too, so the relationship ended. But if you're only separated by states, I think it'd be much easier for one of you to relocate to be closer to the other person without abandoning too much of your current life. It's not as big of a change as moving to a whole new country. I think if you really, really like her, which you sound like you do, to the point where you cannot stop thinking about her. Since I'm responding to the submission, a few months late, if you're still thinking about her now, I think it's definitely worth pursuing. All of the relationships I've had were fostered online. Even if I knew them in real life, we always grew closer via texting and phone calls. So I think you could totally try to close the distance first between you and her online. It's okay. You can try and get to know her more online first, and then if you really like her and she likes you too and you get together, then you can try and close the distance. You know? Become closer friends, get to know each other more. If you find yourself falling for her even more, you can start throwing in some hints. Key point here is don't be too openly flirty because that may turn her off if she's not interested yet. Just hint at the fact that you see her in a special way. Even if she was not interested in you, I think nobody dislikes feeling special. Nobody dislikes feeling like, oh, this person really enjoys spending time with me. Oh, I'm really special. So, drop hints that show her that you kind of see her in a special way. So, instead of saying things like, oh, I think you're really cute, I think saying stuff like, I don't think I enjoy talking to anyone as much as I enjoy talking to you, works much better. Especially if you're transitioning from friends to possibly something more. I feel like if you suddenly start saying stuff like, oh, I think you're cute, it might be kind of weird and it might be too obvious and it might turn the other person off. It's better to say things that sound more genuine, things that sound more like you just really appreciate them as a person. So, yeah. From the sound of it, I think she's comfortable with you and willing to spend time with you. So I'd say get her contact details, start messaging her, maybe get on some phone calls, watch some anime together if you both like anime. Give it a try. Good luck and keep me updated. Hopefully, even though I'm responding to this like 2-3 months late, you're still thinking about her. If that's the case, good luck. I'm cheering you on. Right. Now. Next, we have a submission from editor named Taki Tachibana. Hello, erusha VA. Thank you for considering my submission. Let's say that I, hypothetically speaking, have a passion for a particular hobby and want to share it with a friend. It would be nice to get them into the hobby and enjoy it with them. On the other hand, an expression of this interest from them is also something that I could accept. How should I approach this challenge? What are some techniques I could use to effectively but thoughtfully share a hobby with somebody who may appreciate it as much as me? What should I do if I'm successful at doing so? And what should I do if I'm not? What is your own experience with introducing people to your hobbies, whether mainstream or niche? I do not know. I do know that there's not going to be a magic solution because every person, every hobby is different. And I developed this question with that in mind. That's difficult. Introducing your hobbies to other people. I think the most important thing to consider is picking the right person. I think you need to pick the right person to introduce your hobby to. For example, if this is someone who's already into anime, I think they would be much more likely to get into things like seiyu, which is, anime voice actors basically, or Vocaloid, which is, anime-looking characters who sing, or Genshin Impact, which is a game with characters that have very, anime-inspired designs, right? Or you could be more strategic about the way you introduce them to your hobby. So, for example, if you want to get them into anime, and they've never watched a single anime in their life, but maybe they're into soccer, recommend them a soccer anime, like Blue Lock. It'll probably work better, or you'll have a higher chance at piquing their interest than if you recommend them something like Attack on Titan. To ease them into it, you can test the waters. Test the waters by introducing something to them that's close, reminiscent to something that they already know and like. If what you're introducing to them has even just the slightest bit of correlation to something they're already familiar with or is interested in, you'll have a much higher chance of piquing the interest. So yeah, that's what I would recommend doing. I think the next one is our last submission for today. Last, we have a submission from Edu name Anonymous. Hi Edu. This is going to be a difficult and deep question, but if it's possible, I'd like to hear your opinion. I struggle a lot with imposter syndrome. I hardly ever feel like the positive things people say about me are true. For example, I have friends say that I'm a good person, but I feel like I'm only doing the bare minimum and that I should be doing more, or I have people say that I'm smart, but whenever I don't understand something in class, I feel like an idiot. The problem is that I'm a person who doesn't care much about what other people think of me. But because of that, I care a lot about what I think of myself. And when my personal view of myself is worse than what people tell me, it creates a situation where I'll focus a lot on everything that I feel I'm doing wrong, which on one hand has helped me improve, but on the other stresses me out so much to the point of borderline mental breakdown. What do you think I should do? I know it's not something that can be solved in a day or a week, but I don't know how to deal with these feelings, and I feel like I can't tell my friends because all they'll do is repeat the good things to try and convince me of how they see me. That is such a difficult one too. I struggle with imposter syndrome as well, so I can kind of relate to this. I think if more than one person, because you say friends, so I assume it's more than one person. If more than one person in your life is complimenting you on something, more likely than not, it's probably true. If it's hard for you to convince yourself that you have all these positive qualities that other people say you have, try and think of it in a more logical and statistical way to put it into perspective. So let's say if 3 people say that they think you're really smart, and you yourself don't think you're really smart. That's 3 versus 1. And therefore, it's more likely that you being smart is closer to the truth because it's 3 versus 1. You're only one person. There's 3 people who think you're smart. So statistically, it's more likely that you're smart. Another good thing to understand might be the fact that oftentimes it's more important what others think of you than how you see yourself. Let's say if it was the opposite, right? You think you're smart and nice, but the reality is most people around you think you're dumb and mean. Isn't that worse? It doesn't matter how highly you view yourself. You can think you're the greatest person, the smartest, the kindest. People are not gonna trust you with tasks and will not want to be friends with you if they don't think you're smart or kind or nice to talk to, right? But if it was the opposite, as long as other people view you as smart and capable, they will trust you with tasks. And as long as other people view you as nice, they will be friendly towards you and be willing to talk to you. In the end, you are winning. You win as long as other people think you're great, right? So keep your head high and remember that the reality is if you really were not a great person, there wouldn't be so many people telling you that you're great. That's what I try to believe in. That's how I try to see like popular media as well. Like if there's an anime that's really, really popular and I watch an episode or 2 and I'm like, oh, I don't really like this. I still try to give it a go, watch a bit more of it, or, try and see why it's popular. Because I believe if something can reach a certain level of popularity, there must be a reason for it. And, this is the same. If there are people telling you that you have these good qualities, there must be something about you that makes them feel that way. So, believe yourself. I promise you, people will not be telling you that you're smart, kind, etc. if you don't have those qualities. Most people are too busy with their own lives to, say nice things about other people. So if somebody goes out of their way to say something nice about you, to compliment you, to tell you that you're great, chances are you are great. So, yeah. I hope that helps. Was that all? Oh my god, I think I actually went through my questions faster than I thought I was going to. Those friends don't lie, you normally don't see what comes to you naturally. Yeah, sometimes I feel like other people will see the good in you better than you can see it yourself. So especially if it's your close friends, like people that you spend a lot of time with, if they compliment you, if they say, oh, I noticed that you're really good at this, or I think you're really smart, I think you're really nice, it's probably true. Trust your friends. Trust the people around you. What shall I do? I usually try to go for 2 hours, but I went through my questions a lot faster than I was expecting today. Should we pick up on a bonus question in chat today? Anybody want to throw a question at me right now? Did I talk about enough detail into, life in Japan and my experience living in Tokyo? I hope I was able to give some good advice. Bonus round? Yeah? Anybody wanna throw me a bonus question? How do I get a girlfriend? Okay, that was not the question that I was expecting. But I guess we have a submission from Hiro Vtuber, who asks, how do I get a girlfriend, Eru-sama? Alright. I usually write a bit of notes for what I want to say before the podcast starts, but I'm going completely from, completely off script right now. How to get a girlfriend? Well, first of all, I think you need to go outside and be very open to meeting people. Yeah. So instead of staying home and playing League of Legends every day, I think you need to go outside and hang out with friends as much as possible. And yeah, just be open to talking to new people. Yeah. Step 1, go outside. Yeah. I mean, in the end, if you want to find a partner, you need to meet people. Unless you're okay with meeting people online, I guess you could play games with people online. That works too. But at the end of the day, you have to talk to people. If you don't talk to people, you can't find a girlfriend. So, good luck. Talk to people more. Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, where did you learn English? Or was it your first language? I noticed a bit of an Australian accent. Thank you for the question, Leo. I am Australian. I have been living in Australia since I was 6 years old. So I immigrated to Australia when I was in primary school, grade 1, I believe. And yeah, I only recently moved to Japan. I moved to Japan 2 months ago. So for most of my life, I was living in Australia. And I couldn't speak English until I moved to Japan? Until I moved to Australia when I was 6. So naturally, because I learned English in Australia, I picked up a bit of an Australian accent. I feel like streaming and watching a lot of American VTubers has given me a bit of a mix of an American and Australian accent though. I have a lot of Australian friends tell me recently that I don't sound Aussie anymore. They tell me that I don't sound Aussie and that I sound more American now. But then Americans tell me I don't sound American. So I'm guessing the accent that I have now is like a little mix of both. Like, I have an Australian accent, but it's not super strong. That's probably what it is right now. Yeah. How did you come up with the name erusha? Thank you for the question, David. I actually have answered this before in a Q&A after I debuted as a VTuber, but I'm happy to explain it again because I'm actually pretty proud of how I came up with the name erusha. So for everyone who found me recently and was wondering why my name is erusha, it's actually kind of connected to my real name. Well, not my legal name, but when I moved to Australia, I had to come up with an English name. And I was able to choose what my name is. The options I was given were Amy, Emily, Lisa, and Elsa. My parents gave me those 4 names and were like, hey, choose whichever one you like between these 4 to be your English name. We picked out some options for you. And I was like, I kinda like Emily. And my mom was like, that's too long. And I was like, okay. Elsa then? I was gonna go for Lisa, but I picked Elsa because Elsa felt more unique than Lisa. And guess what? I started class in Australia. There was an Amy, an Emily, and a Lisa in my class. Just no Elsa. Elsa was not really a popular name until Frozen came out. I was Elsa before Frozen came out. So, yeah, my name was pretty unique back in school. I never met a single person with the same name as me all throughout school because, again, my name only became popularized after Frozen came out. So, yeah, I've gone by the name Elsa pretty much my whole life. I say this openly on stream because it's not my legal name. It's just the name that I go by and the name that everyone in my life pretty much calls me by. Like my parents and my grandparents call me Elsa. And yeah, so that's the name that I identify with the most. That is my name. And erusha is basically just Elsa, but translated to Japanese and Chinese and then combined. So Elsa is erusha in Japanese. Erusha. And Elsa in Chinese is erusha. So if you take the eru from erusha and the sha from erusha, it becomes erusha. So it's basically my English name, but translated to the 2 other languages that I speak in Japanese and Chinese, and then stuck together. That's how it became erusha. Yeah. She was the trendsetter. Yes, I was the trendsetter. I was the OG Elsa. There wasn't as many baby girls called Elsa. I was an OG. I swear a lot of mothers or like parents started naming their children or their baby daughter Elsa after Frozen came out. Like if I went to school now, there's probably a lot more Elsas in the classes. But when I grew up, when I was in primary school, middle school, high school, no Elsas. Not a single Elsa. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Yep, that's how my name erusha was born. Erusha no shall we talk? I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the name of my podcast is actually a bit of a wordplay. My name is erusha, and it ends with sha. So that's why I named my podcast Shall We Talk? 語呂がいいからね. If you guys are not familiar with Japanese radio programs, I feel like a lot of Japanese radio podcasts like to put a bit of wordplay into their titles. Like for example, Hanazawa Kana-san, who is a Japanese voice actress, she has a radio program called Hanazawa Kana no 一人でできるかな? Which means, can Hanazawa Kana do this on her own? But, as a part of the sentence, it ends with kana, which is also her name, Kana. So it kind of rolls off the tongue really well. And I basically tried to do the same thing with my podcast title. That's why it's called erusha no shall we talk? As it has erusha and then shall we talk. Yeah, I tried my best to come up with a nice name for my podcast. It was always my dream to start my own podcast. I actually was planning to do one full English episode, one full Japanese episode, one full English, one full Japanese. But unfortunately, I do not have enough Japanese speaking audience to send submissions to the Japanese side. So I am currently bothering all of my Japanese speaking friends to send in submissions to my Japanese podcast. And hopefully, maybe for episode 5 or episode 6, I'll be able to host another full Japanese episode because I really would like to host another Japanese episode. Yeah, if there's anybody who is listening to the podcast right now who speaks Japanese, please feel free to send a submission to the Japanese podcast too. I have 2 Google Forms that you can find both in the description of each podcast episode. One is for the English episodes and one is for the Japanese episodes. So yeah, please feel free to send me submissions. Now that I am settled in Japan, I recently moved to my own apartment and I got all my furniture, I set up everything, and I am finally settled in Japan. So now that I'm settled, I hopefully can start doing monthly podcast episodes again. Do we have any other questions? Or shall I end this episode a bit earlier? I did not realize I was talking so fast. I thought that I had a lot of questions to cover for today, but I talked surprisingly fast. Don't know if questions are over or not, and feel free to not answer. But how do I not feel that my trauma is inferior because it relates to family cancer instead of something like abuse? That's a really heavy question. I kind of get what you mean though, like feeling like your problems are inferior to other people's problems because they've gone through quote-unquote worse. I think this is gonna be such a textbook answer, but don't compare what you're going through to what other people are going through. I feel like everyone's tolerance is different. And you need to be kinder to yourself and allow yourself to feel pain, allow yourself to be kind to yourself, and understand that even if you're going through the exact same struggle as someone else, it might be harder for you to handle than them. And when it comes to just completely different struggles, there's even less need to compare it. Please be kind to yourself. I'll be visiting Japan for the first time in a decade. Had anything changed that I should know about? That's a really good question, actually. A lot has changed in Japan in the past decade. If we're talking about decade, like the past 10 years, a lot has changed. The first time I visited Japan was 2016, which is not a decade ago, but almost a decade ago. It's like, 8 years ago? It was a long time ago. So if I were to compare Japan today to Japan back in 2016, there's a lot of changes. The biggest one being that you don't need cash as much as before. I feel like back in 2016, it really was like you have to have cash on you. Most places did not have options for card. So you had to pay by cash for pretty much everything. Whereas now, cashless payment is a lot more common. I pretty much pay by card wherever I go. The only time I have to use cash is when I pay for my bills and my rent, because I have to put it into the ATM. And ATM, I have to, withdraw cash and then put it in. When it comes to buying clothes, buying merch, buying stuff at the konbini, honestly, you can always use card. Pretty much most restaurants, cafes, shops accept card now. And you can use your foreign card too if you have a Visa or a MasterCard. So, yeah, a lot more convenient now. That's like the biggest one that I think of when it comes to changes, but there's definitely a lot of other changes. There's a lot more foreigners here too. I swear there was not this many foreigners 8 years ago. There's always been a lot of foreigners in Tokyo, but the amount of foreigners that you'll see, especially in Tokyo, is insane. I see more foreign people than Japanese people in certain areas. I hear more English and Chinese when I walk around, especially the populated areas. I keep hearing English and Chinese, and I'm like, this is so weird. I'm in Japan. Why do I hear more English and Chinese speaking people than I hear Japanese speaking people? So yeah, I don't know if that's good or bad, but there's a lot of English speaking people here, so you'll feel more like you're at home than not, especially if you go to the tourist locations. Lot more signs in English for sure. Yeah, because there's so many more foreigners living here and so many more tourists coming here, they've definitely put more effort into helping tourists and foreigners live here or have a vacation here. You'll see pretty much English instructions and English signs for everything. There's usually an English menu too if you go to restaurants and cafes. Biggest struggle in Japan is topping up your Suica or buying a train ticket because for some reason the machines don't take card. Well, you see, there's a way to get around that because all you have to do is put your Suica into your phone. You can put your Suica into Apple Wallet or whatever the equivalent is on Android. I'm on Apple, so I'm not sure, but you can have your Suica on your phone, like a digital Suica. And then you can top up your Suica with your credit card. I use Apple Pay and my Australian credit card whenever I want to top up my Suica. It's so easy. If I just got off the train and I'm like, oh no, I only have 100 yen left. I just press 2 buttons and then Face ID, and then I top up my Suica. Bam, done, instant, immediate. Yeah. But the card Suica is so much cooler. Which is more important, being cool or convenience, right? Just because you have your Suica in your phone, it doesn't mean you can't have a physical one. You can have both. You can have a physical card and then also have it on your phone. Isn't that more convenient though? That's precisely why Suica ran out of card for a certain period of time. I understand the appeal of having a physical card, but I think it's just so much more convenient to have it on your phone. So I personally recommend having a digital Suica. I see cards only work on Android if it's a Japanese phone. Oh, only Android phones bought in Japan can be registered in Google Wallets. I see, I didn't know that. Well, poor Android users. I guess if you're an iPhone user like me, I recommend putting your Suica into your phone. It's just more convenient. Especially now that it's not compulsory to wear masks, and honestly, you don't get judged for not wearing a mask. Yes, a lot of people in Japan wear masks, but I've never been judged for not wearing a mask. And especially now that it's summer, I see quite a lot of people walking around without a mask. If you're not wearing a mask, Face ID is super quick and easy, and you can top up your Suica in like 2 seconds. It's so convenient. Suica Apple Wallet doesn't work for me. Oh, it doesn't? Huh, that's weird. I've been using a digital Suica in my Apple Wallet ever since coming here, and it's been so convenient. Because all I have to be holding onto is my phone. I don't have to get my Suica out. So, and I can top up whenever I want. I also don't have to use cash to top up. And cash is so precious. I try to save every bit of cash that I can get to put into the ATM or to pay for my electricity, water, and gas bills. Because for some reason, when you pay for your bills, when you pay for your utility bills, they only take cash. I don't know why. I paid for my electricity bill yesterday, and they told me that they only take cash. And I was like, oh, I can't use my card? Okay. So yeah. But if you don't live in Japan, you're not gonna have to pay for your bills. So just bring your foreign credit card and you're fine. You can withdraw cash with international card from 7-Elevens. Yes, you can withdraw cash with your international credit card from 7-Elevens or Lawson or Family Mart. You can withdraw from any combini. I think right now 7-Eleven has the best rates. I withdrew from 7-Eleven a few days ago and the rates were really good. So you can withdraw money, but they will charge you an ATM fee, and conversion rate isn't always the best. So if you can use your card, you save money. You always save money from using your card directly to pay than to withdraw cash and pay. So I always prefer to use my credit card or travel card whenever I can, but know that sometimes you have to use cash. So it's beneficial to always have a bit of cash on you. I like to use my travel card where I already have yen converted from AUD, and I always convert it when the conversion rate is the best. So yeah, get a travel card, honestly. Especially if you're coming here for traveling, get a travel card. It's so convenient. Just convert a lot of money to yen when the conversion rate is at its peak. That's what I do. Japanese ATMs open only a certain period of time unless they are in 7-Eleven. Oh, really? I didn't know that. But yeah, I believe 7-Eleven currently has the best conversion rates, so I recommend going to 7-Eleven. Do we have any other questions about life in Japan, living in Japan? I also wanted to talk a bit about voice acting school, but I didn't get any submissions about it, so I do want to say voice acting school has been very different to what I expected. The classes are really big, and a lot of it is reliant on how much you practice in your own spare time. They don't actually teach you much. So if there's anybody listening to this podcast who is also an aspiring voice actor and wants to come to Japan to study, voice acting or go to voice acting school, as someone who is currently experiencing it, I can tell you that it's so much more about how much hours you put in to practice than what they can teach you. It's just like learning art. It's much more about what you put in than whatever a teacher can teach you. So if you're expecting to sign up for a voice acting course here and, get taught the amazing magical techniques that make Japanese voice actors so good at what they do, then you would be wrong. Because they only teach you really basic stuff like breathing techniques, like how to breathe from your stomach, and honestly, a lot of basic information that you can just find on YouTube. It's so much more about, your own, what do you call it? Your own, how disciplined you are to do a lot of practice. Wake up, project your voice. Listen to the performance of your classmates and your teachers really carefully and absorb everything that you can. It's all about you and how much effort you put in. What's the curriculum like? We have at the school that I go to, we have a different lesson every week. For example, this week, my lesson tomorrow is going to be breathing. And we have a teacher who teaches us how to breathe through like your stomach and how to project your voice in the most efficient way. That's one of the lessons. We also have a teacher teaching us how to improve our vocal strength when it comes to singing. We also have a teacher that teaches us acting techniques, how to, analyze a character or a situation and then draw out emotions from the line that you're performing. So every single week we have a different teacher in charge of teaching a different specific topic. But because the classes are so big, you don't really get much personal feedback from the teacher, and you kind of just have to figure it out yourself. You have to listen back to your own performance and figure out what you can improve on. You don't get much personalized feedback from the teacher, at least with the school that I'm going to, because the classes are so big. I feel like I'm on my own and the teacher isn't really there to help me. So if you're going to a senmon gakko, which is more like a school, expect that to be the experience. You're gonna be in a big class with a lot of students, and the teacher is going to barely have any time to actually give you personal feedback and attention. So thanks to VA teacher, I can now breathe. I wasn't able to do such a hard task before. I'm super thankful to VA teacher for teaching me how to breathe. Yes, after going to voice acting school in Japan, I learned how to breathe, and now I can live and breathe like a normal human being. Yeah, sometimes I sit there and I'm like breathing for 10 minutes wondering what this is gonna do, but they teach you 音の呼吸。腹式呼吸なんだよね。They teach you how to breathe through your stomach. And apparently that allows you to project your voice better. Yeah. Do they do some sort of tests at some point? We don't have tests, but we do have auditions. So the course that I'm studying right now, it renews every 6 months. And every 6 months, you can do a audition. And in that audition, you basically get to showcase, right, how much you've grown, if you've improved. You do self-PR, where you like introduce yourself and sell what's like great about you. For example, if it was me, I would say I speak 3 languages fluently. You have to perform some narration lines and then perform some voiceover lines. And the judges will judge your level and give you a grade. And the grade ranges from A, B, C, D, E to F. F is the lowest rank that you can get. And depending on your grade, you'll be allocated into a different class. So I think if you're A or B, you get to go into the highest class. If you're C or D, middle class. E or F, lowest class. And if the judges determine that you do not improve, you will forever be stuck in the lowest class, where they repeatedly teach you how to breathe, where they will repeatedly teach you the basics of the basics, basically. And it's almost a little toxic, the system, because as long as the judges don't feel like you're good enough to move on to the next level or the next class, you are forced to repeat the same course and the same curriculum over and over again and just keep paying that money. So it's a little predatory in my opinion, and I definitely recommend quitting if you feel like you're not learning much from it and they keep, putting you in the same class. Yeah. This A to F thing sounds like Produce 101 or like some kind of survival idol reality TV show. Yeah, it kind of is, because if you're not good enough, you're forever only allowed to be in the lowest class. You have no chances of moving up. And unless you move to the highest class, you don't get any opportunities to be, a part of an agency or be connected to people in the industry or have auditions. If you're in the lowest class, you have no opportunities to network. So, yeah, you just have to get good and try to move up the classes. In my opinion, they should teach you what's the good position or posture when standing in front of the mic. You see, the crazy part is, if you're in the lowest class, and I can only talk about my school, but from what I've heard, from my friends and people online who have gone to other schools and training facilities for voice acting, it's the same. If you're in the lowest class, the basic class, it's all the same. You don't even get to stand in front of the microphone. You don't get to voice act. You don't get to even be in front of a microphone. You only practice the basics of the basics of the basics, which includes breathing from your stomach, projecting your voice, using the correct mouth shape. I didn't know that there was a correct mouth shape when I say ah. I thought I just say ah, but apparently there's a correct shape that you have to have your mouth in to make the best sound. That's the kind of stuff we learn. Teacher will tell you to open your mouth wider. Yeah. Total concentration voice actor breathing first style. Scream. But yeah, I understand why, they want you to really, really hone in your skills on the basic stuff before they give you the opportunity to actually stand in front of a microphone and act. But I think it's very common for people to expect that if they go to, voice acting school, they'll get to stand in front of the microphone and be like, 俺は海賊王になる and do anime voice acting, because that's usually what people look up to. That's what they want to do. They want to voice anime characters. They want to be in front of the mic, right? But I'm here to, tell you the reality, and the reality is that you don't get to do that. You don't get to do that unless you move up to the highest class or until you actually make it into the industry. And typically, if you have no experience and you're not like a genius or anything, you will probably start from the beginner class. So, yeah. I learned that in vocal lessons too. Yeah, actually a lot of the things that they teach you in voice acting class is quite similar to the things you would learn in vocal lessons. Like, how to breathe in a way so that you can project your voice better, the correct mouth shape, things like that. My VA dreams are being shattered in real time. I'm so sorry. But I have to tell you the truth. We keep it real here. We keep it real here. But yeah, if there's anybody who wants to ask me any more specific questions about, doing freelance voice acting work or voice acting school experiences in Japan, please feel free to send a submission to my podcast. Maybe I can talk about that in the next episode. And if you have any more questions about my life in Japan, the struggles or the benefits, the great things about living here, or more recommendations for things you can do and places you can go to, anything. Also, if you want more tips and tricks on learning Japanese, just anything you want to ask me related to Japan and Japanese, anime, life, relationships, we talk about everything here. So please send me submissions. I actually have no more submissions to go through after all the ones that I went through today. So in order for me to host another episode next month, I will need your help. I will need you guys to send in some submissions. So don't be shy. I will answer anything. Feel free to send in a submission as anonymous if you are too shy to reveal that it's you. And yeah, just feel free to ask me about anything. I think I'm pretty good at giving advice when it comes to life and relationships especially. So if you're looking for advice or anything, or if you just want to hear more about my experience living in Japan and my experience being a freelance voice actor and translator here, send it to my podcast. Yeah. I think we are now just in time, 2 hours into the podcast. Alright. Oh my god, it's been so long since I hosted a podcast episode. I don't even remember how I usually end them. But I think we had a lot of new listeners today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you missed the first half of the episode, I mainly focused on talking about my experiences living in Japan, the struggles of living here, and things like that. So if you're interested in that, make sure to check out the timestamps. I will add them in the comment section after this live stream ends. And yeah, you can see the links to the Google Forms where you can submit questions or just anything to my podcast in chat, and you can also find it in the description of every podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please come to the next episode too. Thank you for listening to erusha no Shall We Talk, a podcast where we talk about otaku culture, voice acting, language learning, life in Japan, and more. I was your host, erusha, a trilingual voice actress and Vtuber fluent in English, Japanese, and Mandarin Chinese. I hope to see you again in the next episode. お疲れ様でした。それではまた次の回でお会いしましょう。おつえるエルシャのシャルウィートーク。